Hey everybody, it's Vera Wild, and it's time for me to address a topic just in time for Pride Month. Almost missed it. I've been a little busy, things have been a little crazy, but I mentioned in my last video that I was going to devote a video to this topic, and that is that I am now on estrogen, in addition to the T blockers, which I've been on for about 3.5 years. So this was a piece of information that I dropped in my previous video where I was addressing the question of why someone without dysphoria would wish to transition. I didn't want to have that be the video where I started talking about that and where I revealed that, and I'll kind of get into why in a little bit, but I felt that that fact of my existence was kind of important to the overall topic of what I was covering in that video. So I did put that in there, but I did say that I was going to address the fact that I'm now on estrogen as a separate topic. So let's go over a few things. I still identify as gender fluid. I do not now identify as a trans woman, even though I am now on a full feminizing hormone regimen. But regardless, I do still identify as gender fluid at this point, and I will get into that in a little more detail. And at this point, time of recording, I have been on estrogen for 5 months. I'm just wrapping up my 5th month on estrogen. So let's start with why, if I am still identifying as gender fluid and have not fully abandoned my masculinity, why have I taken this additional step? Well, the thing is, even though I still have a overall fluid sense to my gender, the default has been drifting. Now, if you've been watching me for a while, you may recall that when I talked about going on testosterone blockers, going on spironolactone, that the working theory that we were sort of operating on, we being myself and my primary care physician, because all of these are prescribed. I'm taking everything that I'm on is under the care of a doctor. So the idea of going on testosterone blockers and reducing the amount of active testosterone sort of going through my system was to try and set my standard, my neutral, something truly closer to the middle, because without the T blockers, my default was masculine, because that's how I was born. And so when I had days where I felt more feminine, it felt like more of an effort to sort of pull in the other direction and end up in a more feminine place. So I went on the testosterone blockers, trying to bring myself more to a center starting position. And the reason I've now gone on estrogen is because my default, where I like to be most of the time, has drifted further into feminine. So if we're still looking at a scale of masculine to feminine, in the earlier part of my life, it was always a bit of a scatter plot. There will always be some days totally feminine, totally masculine, but like before I started going on any kind of hormones, if these are your two extremes, my range was around here. Then I went on the testosterone blockers and the range was around here. Now I've gone on estrogen and the range is around here. Again, with some outlying days going further to the feminine or further to the masculine. So that was a big part of why I made the decision to start estrogen. Part of why I didn't want to talk about it in that video was I didn't intend to start talking about this for at least a few more months, possibly until the end of the year. Again, you may recall, I was on the testosterone blockers for a long time before I talked about it. And it wasn't out of any kind of fear or shame, but it was because I didn't know if I was going to stick with it. And I came into the estrogen, I suspected I was going to stick with it. It was the same with the testosterone blockers, but there was the possibility that I would decide, no, this isn't what I want. And something just felt off for me to be getting monitored during those periods of uncertainty, when people would have a lot of questions about me and what I was doing that I wouldn't have answers to. So that was why I wanted to wait until later. Unfortunately, circumstances, I wasn't able to do that. So I had actually considered estrogen before, and the tipping point for me came when I realized that there was really only one thing that was holding me back. Because, and I'll get back to that one thing, because estrogen has a number of effects. Obviously on your hormone levels, and as far as effects on the body, it does not always, but it can encourage breast development. I'd already actually had that on the T blockers alone, but I've filled out a little bit more. I've actually had to get proper bras. So that's a thing now. So that's one thing. There is the redistribution of fat and also a tendency to retain fat a little bit more, which is not something I've really hit as yet. If it happens at all, because some of these things are more certain than others. Then there is the softening of the testicles. There is a potential for reduction in sex drive and sexual function, and there is sterility. So some of these things are permanent effects. Some of them are temporary effects. So things like the fat redistribution and the impact on your sex drive, those will revert back to what they were before if you stop taking estrogen and go back to what you were before. Other things like breast development and sterility, those are permanent. If those happen, then you're stuck with that forever, as is the testicle softening. So when I said there was one thing holding me back, that one thing was concern over the loss of sexual function. Because even though at this point I am now on hormones, and I had said like some years ago I didn't see myself taking this direction, here I am. I really don't see surgeries for myself at all. Like any of them. Not tracheal shaving, not facial feminization, not breast augmentation, not removal of my goods. I don't see any of that. And that feels like a much harder line. But that there was that fear about the loss of sexual function. Now, I talked before about my sexual desire going down a little bit on the spironolactone, on the testosterone blockers, because it didn't reduce my function, but it did reduce my drive. And I'd already experienced that. But the loss of function did worry me. But the thing is, that is filed under temporary effects. If that happens, which as yet it has not, but if it does, to a degree that I decide I'm not okay with, well, there's actually a few things. It's not infeasible for me to, it actually is ridiculously easy for me to get a prescription for Viagra and treat it like erectile dysfunction. Or, worst case scenario, I can simply stop taking the estrogen. And that will recover. Because the three big permanent effects are breast development. So these girls are now permanent. The testicle softening and the sterility. Now, the sterility doesn't matter because I've had a vasectomy and I already have my kid. So that one I didn't care about. The testicle softening, whatever. The breasts, I like them. So the one thing that I was concerned about going on estrogen was also something that was reversible. And with that in mind, and after talking it through with my partner, I did begin taking estrogen. And I'm on the patch. There are three main ways that you can take estrogen. There are pills, there are shots, there are patches. And I basically landed on the patch by process of elimination. I wasn't huge on the idea of shots. I don't have an inherent fear of needles or anything. It just, the idea, it seemed a bit much. The main reason to go with shots over other options is shots will get you the effects of the hormone treatment the fastest. So shots is often what you'll find with people who know and have known for a while, well prior to their actual hormone treatment, that they know what they are. They know they are a man. They know they are a woman. They want to get there quickly. With me, given my more meandering way through all this, that sort of straight shot through that you get through injections with faster results, I didn't need it. And with patches versus pills, there is a slightly, I mean, I don't have a problem with pills. I mean, the spironolactones are pills. I'm on meds for my ADHD. You know, I don't have a problem taking pills, but there is a lower risk of blood clots with the patch than there is with the pill. So I am on the patch. I have to replace it weekly. I'm not going to show you, but it goes on sort of the lower body, around the sort of waist, and sorry, not the waist, the hip area, either front or back. Not like directly on the side of the hips, because then you're mostly on bone, but sort of down in the upper pubic region. Can also go on the rear end, on the buttocks. And yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and I intend to stick with it. I'm happy with the results I've gotten. I'm curious to see what else I will get. And I thought it was at this point time, especially given that I had to drop it already, to let you folks know that this is where I am now with this journey. I'm more open to the possibility now than I have been in the past that I might ultimately end up identifying as a trans woman. I used to think that that was never going to happen. I now accept that it is a possibility. I don't view it as an inevitability or a certainty. And I'm certainly not there now. I do still consider myself gender fluid. And I do still have my more masculine days. But my standard, my default, my most common typical day leans feminine. And it was time for me to find a way for myself to lean more with that. And here I am. If you have questions about this that I didn't somehow answer, I hope you'll ask them politely. And I hope everyone is doing well. It's been a heck of a Pride Month, but it's a journey. My personal journey, the world's journey. There's a lot of journeys going on right now, and there are bumps in a lot of these roads. But I want you to always remember this. This is very important, and I hope you are listening carefully. You are beautiful. You are valid. You are loved. Thank you for listening.